And Caro, as I welcome you in, there'll be significant fallout. We start with the fallout, though, at Port Adelaide tonight.
Which was a true shock of the weekend, I reckon, boys. Nobody saw this coming. Port were completely obliterated. Were they obliterated psychologically as well as physically? No one saw this coming, as I said. We'll hear from the coach soon. We'll hear from the president. But, Kane, I want to hear from you as to what your theory is at the moment about what happened to that football club.
Couldn't believe the first quarter, Caro. Some of the efforts that you saw, how they just weren't there physically and the pressure that they failed to apply. But finals footy is about who's the hardest and who is the toughest. Port Adelaide were found wanting in these areas. This is the first quarter, all these efforts. Travis Boak, he has a look there. He hasn't had a look all year, but in the biggest game of all, he does. Connor Rosie, slow it down. He has a look here. This is unacceptable 5 minutes into a prelim final against a 20-year-old opponent who kicked 4 goals and was a player. Look how hard Caleb Daniel is here. Who wants it more? Caleb Daniel wants it more. Who wants this one more? Is it Burton or is it Norton? Burton takes a look. These are all in the first quarter. This is a final. Once again, Johannesson versus Port Adelaide's toughest player, Tom Jonas. He just wanted it more, and Zach Butter's worried about this. So these are 6 or 7 clips just from the first quarter alone. They had no hope of winning this game when they turned up with efforts like that.
And Kane, these are some of the numbers that you're looking at, players below par. And Ken Hinkley would do his pre-game like normal, Kane, and he hands over to his players, but it was damning, particularly on their centre bounce players from the start of the game.
It was, Lordo, and I wonder where Ken Hinkley will go to. I don't see them making any drastic moves in terms of moving on from the coach, but next year will be his 10th year, as we've spoken about on this show all year, and I just find it really hard for him to go beyond next year because it's going to have to be a grand final appearance or he probably will lose his job. It's not going to happen now, and they'll support him, and so they should, but next year is going to be a big amount of pressure coming his way.
Wow. Well, we talk about history, and I know Kane today has talked about 2007 and that massive loss to Geelong that Port players, he says, still, some of them, have not got over, Matthew. I go back to 1999 when Essendon reportedly was talking about selling grand final tickets before they played their preliminary final, and that reminded me of something when I heard Tom Rockcliffe speak on the ABC on Saturday.
It's going to be a cracking contest, we know that, but I think if we play our best footy, then we should have a good win tonight. We've got to get through tonight first, but if we do, then we've got 2 weeks to really go to work on Melbourne and come up with a plan that we think can match them and beat them in the grand final. So we feel like we've got a really well-balanced team and we can get our hands on it around the footy and give our forwards a look at it. I think we go very, very, very well tonight.
And then, of course, we had the ex-Port Adelaide players, Matthew, including Alapati Carlisle, planning a trip to WA for the grand final. Now, obviously, plans are made. Port Adelaide was told who their premiership presenters might be or when they would learn last week. And clubs say funny things and they have to plan for grand finals. But in this case, I just wonder whether Ken Hinkley was in some small way psychologically caught napping, or his players?
Well, yeah, they'll be going through all that, Caro. They'll be looking at every single thing that they did. Did they not train hard enough or well enough? When the doggies are match hardened, did they not do that well enough? He'll be looking at his pre-game. They'll be looking at absolutely everything. But we look at Ken Hinkley in the coach's box, and he was just dumbfounded pretty much from the first bounce. Look, this 2 goals. When you can see concern on his face right away from the moment Liberatore got the first clearance, from the moment Bailey Smith kicked the first goal with no pressure on him, from the moment Rosie and Boak and Wines are fumbling early on. He must have asked himself, why on the biggest stage of all has my team crumbled? Because, as I said, he would have prepared them no differently to how he has all year. Yet, they went to water on the big stage, Cara.
That was stark to hear Kane say that, Lordo, that a coach who might have been on the verge of being their second premiership coach from an AFL perspective, all of a sudden his future's in question. Do you think it was that big a loss for him? Do you agree with Kane that it calls into question whether he's there beyond the end of next year?
Because it's been so long, I think Chris Scott and Ken Hinkley have got massive runs on the board for themselves. But I think that, again, I think Ken's a mental thing. For me, Chris Scott, we will get to shortly, it's a player personnel, ageing players. But I think Ken had the perfect lead-in. And that's why Kane and everyone at Port would be so upset, because Hutch, they had the perfect lead-in. They had Alex Keith pulls out, Cody Waitman pulls out. They were home in their own beds. They had a break the week before. Everything was there for them, and they absolutely crumbled.
the Bulldogs didn't train as well, and they had the fiasco on the way in. So
They did, Lord
no
Owen.
question. The midfield issue, though, Kane, you want to talk to?
It is, Hutchie. So this is where I think was the biggest issue for them, and perhaps we got sucked in because look at the teams that are playing in the grand final. Their midfields go so deep. This is all Port Adelaide have got and all they've gone to all year. It's been Wines, Boak and Drew. They're the staples. And according to Champion Data, they're really the only three midfielders in there. Carl Amon, Dersmer and Bergman are more wing, and Butters and Rosie are more forward. So they need to target a midfielder quickly during this trade period, and one that can come in and play a role straight away.
So it's been a few years, Matthew, since David Koch put the acid on Ken Hinkley after another lost final, again at the Adelaide Oval. This was David Koch after the game today.
Oh, disappointed, shattered, embarrassed with the way we played. Really owe our members an apology for what happened on Saturday night. Last year we were gallant. This year we're embarrassing. We had a shocker on Saturday night, not walking away from that. But the foundation that Kenny has built, the team that he has built, is applauded right throughout the industry. And I know my job is to get through the emotion without making any decisions at all and look at the facts and look at the data.
Yeah, the fallout will continue for weeks and months to come. I don't know whether Ken is under threat next year. It seems pretty harsh to me, but you're right. He's been there for a long time now. And this, as he said before the game, we had everything that we wanted. The other thing I would say is when Brisbane got beaten, I think it was Brisbane who Port would have feared as well because their record was so much better against Port and not the Bulldogs.